All right. Wow. So excited to have you here, Jackie. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to meet you face to face via Zoom.
I know, right? It's interesting though, I think in today, I just feel like with social media, there are people that I feel like I know or like in Zoom and I may never share oxygen with them, but it's still, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or some sort of combination, but like, I don't know. It's nice to be able to still be able to reach out to other people.
Yeah, it's just how friendships work these days. I mean, I host an entire podcast with somebody that I have known for 3 years and we've never met. So it's just how
Yes,
things
that's
go.
right. Oh my gosh. We will get to that podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm so talk about it. So, but Jackie, how do you and I know each other?
Well, we know each other from Instagram. Sorry, I'm like social media.
Yeah. I know I always like to tell people like, hey, are we actually friends? Do we know each other? How do we know each other?
Right.
Yeah, through Instagram. You're right. That's
We're
how
in
I
a great group together that is kind of, I don't know, mediated,
huh.
hosted by Jackie Shoemaker Holmes from Eating Her Young, and she's wonderful and supportive and has been very, I don't know, just very supportive of me on my Instagram journey. I would
Yes.
not have the community that I have without her help. So, and I would not have met you without her help. So that's lovely.
Yes, also that, which is so wonderful. And same, I think a lot of parents that I talk to struggle with social media in a number of ways. And for those of us who are using it professionally, especially, it's a minefield. It's a lovely space. It's far reaching. It's devastating. And so it's nice to have other people who are walking that similar path who can bolster us when we're having some not great days and celebrate our victories and all of that.
Definitely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So speaking of that, how did you decide to start the Kind Minds Smart Hearts page?
Well, TikTok decided for me, basically.
Fabulous. Love it.
I was, yeah, in the middle of the pandemic, I went to the vet one day with my son, and my vet had this great thing where you could drop off your dog and they would do the shots, whatever, and then bring him back to the car. So I was sitting in my car. My son was snoozing in the back seat and not in the back seat, in his car seat. And I, having a background in teaching and counseling, I was like, my husband's been trying to get me on TikTok. I mean, my husband was, looking at people dancing forever. I
Yes, sure.
refused to get on. And I was like, I'm just going to throw some things out there, see what happens. And I posted a video about some alternatives to saying good job to your kids. And it blew up. And it was so exciting, like I was like, wow, it was so exciting. And also, I got so many messages from people saying, I had never considered this. And thank you so much for sharing this. And so I posted a few more that were kind of in that same vein. And then I kind of grew quickly over there. It's stalled a little bit now, but I grew kind of quickly. And then just got so much wonderful feedback from parents about how much I was helping. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not in the classroom. I'm at home. I have time to do this. And so I've just kept going with that.
Wonderful. I know
Yeah.
I have I'm going to try it. Let me give it a go. Maybe I can't. Yes, no with TikTok.
Yeah. Well, and I started also like I would post some other stuff because I didn't really realize, and if anybody's listening who wants to be a content creator has these ideas, like once you start going in one direction, it's really hard to like do the things you want to do and have people still appreciate it. Because
Yes.
I was like, well, maybe I love Bravo and reality TV. Maybe I could do some TikToks about that. And
Sure.
people were like, please stick to parenting. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, fine. But
Oh
now that I
no.
have, yeah, I know. But now that I have a little community and they know me better and like, they're
Yeah.
following me for the right reasons, then I think
Yeah.
they accept my weirdness and
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Okay, I have to go on the quickest of quickest tangents. And for those of you
Sure.
who don't care about Bravo, hit the forward for 30 seconds. So I don't, but my girlfriend lives in Salt Lake City. And so she started watching the Salt Lake City. So I started watching it with her. And I was out there a couple of weeks ago. And so we went to the original Beauty Labs parking lot where like the
Where it
Miss
all went
Satan
down.
herself was, yes, exactly. Was arrested. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it was such a moment. I have a picture of us. Maybe I'll post it. And those who are listening will know on Instagram, and everyone will also be like, what is
Why is
this?
she posting a parking lot? Love
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, so we had that. And again, I will obviously put all of your contact information, everything that you're discussing here in the show notes to the listener. So never fear. But that's so great. And you are right. It's like stay in your lane energy sometimes, but
Mhm.
it's like people think that they're being encouraging, like, no, but you're so good at the teaching stuff. And yeah.
Right. But you're like, I'm a whole person. I have all these other interests. And I know that if you like how I present this, you're going to also like how I present this. Just give me a chance. And I
Yeah.
don't like, yes, I love talking about parenting and I love talking about mental health, but sometimes I'm like, okay, I just want to talk about something that's a little bit more chill today. You know, I don't want to get so deep every time. So,
You know, that's really, this is not a conversation. This podcast episode is not about life on social media, but I feel like
right.
just continuously kind of coming
Yeah.
back to it. But yeah, I like how you said I'm a whole person. And I think especially in the, we get kind of two-dimensional, like this is what you do, this, here you are on paper, and that's kind of it. And yeah, you are right. There are certain times where like, I just want to talk about my new running shoes, or
Right. Yeah.
and some people are like, that has nothing to do with mental health. I'm like, first of all, new running shoe day is my favorite holiday of the year. It does have everything to do with my mental health. Also, it helps me to exercise. So also my mental health. But
Right.
yeah.
You need to go for a walk or a run every day. Get those juices flowing. I think it's super important.
Yes.
I
So you
agree.
talked about not like alternatives to saying good job to your kids, which I will definitely get into more. What are some other of the ways that you find, your favorite ways to encourage parents?
I think something that I do, or I try to do, I don't know if I do it successfully or not, but I try to remind parents where I came from.
Yeah.
Because I think they see me, and sometimes I present things about emotional regulation, and people are like, well, how am I going to teach my kid about emotional regulation? And I can't even regulate myself. And trust me, I get it. And that's what I try to remind people. Like, I came from the classroom. That's where I learned my parenting stuff. And I was a screamer before I was a breather. Like, I used to scream at my students, and I am embarrassed by it and shocked that they reach out to me now and want to, like, they're like, oh my gosh, I love you. I miss you. I'm like, what? You do?
Do you really? You missed the hollering, huh? That was good
You
for you.
liked that? Yeah. Okay. All right. But, and just to say, it's possible to make a turnaround. It's possible to change, and that I still revert back to that. Like, it's my first go-to. When my son does something that drives me bananas, I want to scream as well. I feel it. And it takes me a second to be able to catch myself and use one of those strategies that I've learned, and
Mhm.
then move into a more effective communication pattern with my child.
Yes.
So I think just making sure to connect and let people know I'm not trying to be the perfect mom, and you shouldn't either. And
Mhm.
we're all going to learn together with this. Um, but also, I like to use humor, and I like to use strategies that are easy to remember.
Yes.
Um, because it's too hard when you're super emotional to be like,
Yes.
okay, wait, what did that lady tell me to do again? I forgot. And
Rat, what? Was it
exactly.
March?
Yeah.
Was it back?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I literally have that conversation with clients where they're having, a lot of it's usually interpersonal, often with partners, and I'll be like, if you need to talk about like when you start ramping each other up and you push each other's buttons, like you can break that cycle if when you are calm, you can have a conversation about like a safe word, pineapples, and
Right.
that means I'm going to walk away, and you're still angry about that, but it's okay because we established in a calm space that I'm going to walk away. I'm going to say pineapples, I'm taking 10 minutes, I'm leaving, whatever that looks like. And so, yeah, being able to think about that in the calm, in the car line when you're scrolling Instagram, watching your videos, right? Like, I'm
Right.
not angry right now. I can kind of internalize this a little more, and then possibly in the future, try to regulate myself, because I don't know if people weren't thinking about it, or I was a child myself and so I didn't know about it, but I don't feel like we've talked a lot about that historically, about like a dysregulated adult is not going to help a child become more regulated. It just felt like you said, like your example, which you said, like you would just scream at the children. And
Right.
like,
Like,
I'm
what?
screaming, so you need to calm down.
Exactly. And it's like, how could they possibly learn that calm is the way to go if you're not showing them that calm is the way to go? I love how
Yeah.
everybody's safe word is pineapple, by the way. You said safe word, my brain went pineapple.
I don't know. I don't know. I did have somebody who, he is one of my clients. He is quite the jokester, obviously no other identifying information, but he was like, well, I can't do that. My wife will think I want to be a swinger.
Oh, yeah, that
Oh
is a
Lord,
swinger thing.
you've ruined pineapple for me now. No, no,
That's
hey, no,
funny.
this is a sex positive space. No shame for swingers, just that wasn't our goal. So
Right.
yes, do your thing.
So you brought up a really great point about like doing things when you're calm. And I have a whole analogy that, I love analogies. I love an
Love 'em.
acronym. And I kind of adapted it from one that I learned from Conscious Discipline, where they use a car analogy, but I took it a little bit further and I use an airplane. So
Yes,
your kid is like the pilot of their brain plane, and they need to learn how to fly the plane because they're going to be the only one that can possibly fly the plane. You cannot make your child do anything, really. They're going to do it. So you want them to be in the cockpit. That's the prefrontal cortex. You want them in the front. That's a pilot that is trained. They know the flight plan. They know how to push all the buttons. They know how to get where they're going. Once they get emotional and whiny, they're more like a passenger in the cabin. They're pushing the button. I want a drink. I want food. I need the bathroom. Like when your kid is like repeating things they want, they're the passenger in the cabin. They might just be like trying to negotiate, but I just want to be on my I have airplane mode on. Why can't I be on the internet or whatever the rules are? I don't know the rules of phones, but they're trying to negotiate with you. They're in the cabin. Once they've fallen out of the plane, they're in their brainstem. They're too panicked to learn anything. You can't teach that kid anything. And calm down strategies are a parachute pack. So the time to teach someone to use a parachute pack is when they're in pilot school, when they're learning about flying a plane.
Yes.
You can't, when you're the flight attendant, which is what your parent is,
yes.
They're the people that can help you remember. They're helping the cabin people. They're like, here's the safety card. I'll give you the instructions just in case you forget. Hey, you're in the middle of a tantrum. Remember, you have these calm down strategies we've practiced before. Here they are. I'll remind you where your parachute pack is. It's right under your seat. That's what a flight attendant or parent can do. And when your child's falling through the sky, you might have to jump out of the plane and grab onto them with your parachute pack and co-regulate with them because you've got your strategies and you're helping them. So yeah, that's my whole thing. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I got all the parts out.
No, honestly, that is genius. Again, I just think it's so hard for us as parents. I am so guilty of this myself with my anxiety, my own life anxiety, with the parenting, with the state of the world right now, everything that's going on. And I just find like it's really helpful for me to conceptualize these things. Like I am allowed to be angry, frustrated, whatever, that my children are fighting with each other and being what I think is malicious is my mom gets so mad when I use words like malicious. She's like, it's so strong. And I'm like, okay, they're being intentionally unkind. Okay.
Malicious means bad. Mal just means bad, it just means they have bad intentions. That's all it means.
Yeah, that's right. And God bless my children. They're pretty intelligent and they know exactly how to push each other's buttons. But so I'm allowed to feel the emotional response to that and be frustrated, but then also how am I conceptualizing it and how like it has to go through the machine of my own brain and being like, okay, you're feeling this emotion because you're having the situation and what is your action going to be as a result of that? And if I can display to them as their parent, like, this is how I respond when I'm frustrated and upset, and I can, have a cogent discussion with them. It's helpful for them in the future too, as they grow and learn in that space. And I'm not asking anybody here to be perfect. You already said earlier, we've already taken perfection off the table. So bye. Oops, I just hit my mic. But yeah, so it is so helpful for us to really have that visualization. I love the airplane. I love that idea. And you're right. Ain't no one flying that kid's plane but them. You can do all you want, but you're the flight attendant.
You can tell them what's going on in the back. You can tell them, hey, I heard that there's something happening, but they're in charge and they will be forever. So they need to be taught to be able to navigate it on their own. And you said something, yes, modeling it is so important, like modeling what to do when you're frustrated. A lot of parents are like worried about, well, what if I do it and they think I'm acting and not really doing it? And it's like, well, you don't have to. You don't have to manufacture situations because there are so many of them every day that just pop up.
So many.
We're so lucky. # blessed. I was with a mom at a school pickup yesterday and she was like, my son always goes, and then I realized it's because I go, when I'm frustrated. And it's activating, to use the word that is not triggering anymore. It's activating when you see your child go, because you're like, my child should just be happy and respond to things calmly. But we don't. And it's okay to be annoyed about stuff,
It's okay. I was activated in that moment. I do feel
Yeah.
like it is funny. I used to work in a psych hospital with junior high schoolers, and they would just love to throw like trigger and coping skills and trigger and coping skills. And I'm like,
Mhm.
doesn't even mean anything anymore. So I do acknowledge we perhaps abused, triggered, but I was activated just then because my kids both go, "Ugh," and I'm like, I don't do that, but there are certain things. Like my son, all of a sudden, a couple years ago, started saying, "Come on, man," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I'm sorry that he's frustrated, but it's so cute. And then I don't know if it was me or my husband, but we both absolutely say it. So I don't know if he heard us say it or we heard him say it, but one of us has started it, and we're all doing it. And it's funny because it's like the things that you do, like your children absorb so much from you and you're not even necessarily aware, and you're gritting your teeth or grunting or come on Manning,
Mhm.
and so yeah, and it is tough. It's like, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's going with that. Like I was
Yeah.
looking at my daughter on the ride home from school yesterday. We were at a stoplight and I like looked back at her and thought, what a beautiful space where like she doesn't care about really anything in the world right now except for going to school and learning, how to sing Moon River and
Mhm.
coloring, and certainly getting into arguments with her brother. But like the reality of the terror of war, what a place of privilege upon which I sit to be able to have my children in that space. But yeah, and it's like, so while they are in this place where their biggest concern is, which Harry Potter movie and who gets to pick which Bluey episode and whatever,
Right.
being able to get them in the space where they're modeling and learning these behaviors, but also, like you said, but not manufacturing, not like, I'm actually really upset right now. And it's pretty obvious that I'm
Yeah.
really upset, but I'm smiling because that's what I'm supposed to do because I'm your parent.
Right. Yeah. Or like if I take deep breaths, my son sometimes thinks I'm acting. Like I'll take a deep breath and be like, I'm calming myself down to
Uh-huh,
address
uh-huh.
him. And he says, stop calming down. Stop calming down. I know what you're doing. You're calming down. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well, listen, this is frustrating for you. You don't have to look at me, but you can't control what I'm doing. I need to calm down so that I don't shout at you. I really don't want to shout. So give
right.
me a second. And so he realizes that. He also doesn't like if I say the same thing too many times, like it's okay to be angry, it's not okay to throw something. The other day he got really mad that I kept saying that. He said, I know that you always say that. Oh, sorry, doorbell's being rung. um well, sorry friends, I don't, nobody's supposed to be here, so I'm not answering that. So what was I
I'll listen to
saying?
this podcast later and be like, that was me. No.
Exactly. No, oh, he said, I don't like, you always say that when it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to throw something. Don't say
Uh-huh.
that. And I said, what if I say, when the volcano blows, you don't throws? And he goes, okay, fine, you can say that. He just like, he didn't want me to say it in the same way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I get
he,
it. It's very
yeah,
like, my husband even says that sometimes. He's like, stop social working me. Like,
yeah,
and I'm like, but it's really what I want to say right now. Like, I really
yeah,
do need, or like in your case, like, I really do need to take breaths and oxygenate my muscles right now before I make my next move. Because if I want to respond and not react. And if I don't do that breath, I'm going to react. And you're witnessing it, and it may seem fake to you, but I really need to do it. It's a whole
it's a whole thing.
perception, and it's a whole thing. And yeah, yeah,
But it's good to talk through those things and like for them to really see you have it. It's the same as seeing them up, having them see you apologize is really helpful. Having them see you apologize
yes,
to them and to other people. Like
yes,
I don't want to ever get into a huge blowout fight with my husband in front of my son, but
sure,
I don't mind letting him see kind of smaller things every once in a while so that he can see two grown adults working through something.
yes.
And then also, like yesterday, I snapped at my husband about something. I can't remember what. But then a few minutes later, I was like, I'm sorry. I said blah, 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 about blah, blah. And I didn't even intentionally say it in front of my son. Like I wasn't even thinking about that. But then afterwards, I was like, oh, I'm glad he was there when I said that. Maybe he heard me, you know?
I love that you just said that because I don't know how people are going to roll their eyes so hard when I say this. It feels performative. It feels performative, and I acknowledge it, but I love an opportunity to apologize to my children. Like if I say, I don't know, pick up your socks or whatever. And then my husband would be like, oh no, he's got his socks there because we're about ready to go. That's not a thing that's ever
Hmm.
happened. And I love being able to be like, oh my gosh, son, honey, I'm so sorry. I
Hmm.
shouldn't have asked you, I should have looked around before I made a response to that or whatever. And I really do, because I think it's so important. I have so many clients, especially we just got through here in the United States. I don't know. We need to come up with a new name, not Thanksgiving, but also Gratitude Day. I don't know. we murdered Indigenous people. Anyway, whatever
Yeah.
that holiday was. And every single client of mine in the next week was like, here are the things that I haven't told you about my family. Here are the things that came up with my family, da, da, da. And a lot of them really have, it's kind of unpacking that, like, my parents used to display their perfection to me, do this because I know better, do what I say, all of that, and then realizing that your parents are actually human, and like the shattering or the cracking of the glass, or the shattering of the illusion in the rose-colored glasses. And it's like, I never want those rose-colored glasses to exist. And I can't pretend that that doesn't naturally happen, because I think my kids think I'm pretty cool. Well, maybe not cool, but how do we get to a space where they see our faults and our flaws and our attempts at becoming better, so that they never feel like they have to try to attain perfection like their parents?
Right. Yeah. And I try to tell him when I'm like, this is another sort of example, but like, I'll try to be like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit nervous today. I have a doctor's appointment, or I'm feeling a little bit anxious because I'm going to go on a podcast today and I don't know, how's it going to go? And I just like to talk to him about those things, because you can't say all feelings are okay if you don't ever have any feelings other than happy,
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Right. If I am just easy breezy, life is perfect, nothing gets me upset, I'm only happy or excited, like cheering for the Cowboys and the Falcons, or like whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And they never do get to, like, I was crying last week, and I won't go into it, trigger warning, not gonna mention it, but I was looking at a child who had passed away in West Asia, and I was crying, and my son had come down out of his room when he wasn't supposed to be, but nevertheless, he's 4, bless him. And he's like, Mama, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, I'm really sad because somebody died. Their body stopped working. That's how I explained it. My grandpa died of Parkinson's last year, and he was 3, and he was like, what does died mean? And so his body stopped working is how he described that. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm sad. I'm crying. You can see that. I'm not going to show you I'm not going to show you why I'm crying.
Right.
I'm not going to show you that. But again, it was one of those moments, and then I was sobbing the rest of the night, even after he had left. But it was one of those moments where I was like, this is okay. This is okay for my 4. It's not ideal. I was hoping he was in bed. He wouldn't have seen me doing that. And also, mommy gets sad sometimes, and that's life.
Yeah. On the opposite side of that, and I don't want to throw my husband under the bus because he's had a really rough year. Okay. No, this is actually kind of sad. So my husband's mom passed away in January.
Okay.
And so my son has seen a lot of, not as much sadness as I would have expected my son to see under these circumstances. Okay. Sure. But my husband still will cry whenever his mom is brought up, but he doesn't cry. He'll just, maybe one tear will come out of his eye. He processes things differently. My mom passed away 10 years ago. So I was a drunken crying mess, getting kicked out of bar. Like, I processed it horribly. He's processing it however he's processing it. There's not a right way to grieve, Sure. But my son sees that, and my husband is also struggling as a man brought up in a kind of conservative traditional culture where it's not okay to cry. Yes. He's struggling with my son crying. Like, when my son cries, he's like, it triggers
be a man. No,
yeah,
like
exactly. He doesn't say be a man. He's not like that. And he's receptive to some of the things that I talk about. He's trying, but he's just not there yet. And it'll be
the door is open.
The door's open. So I'm proud of him for that. Okay. Right. Yeah. And he'll say, it's okay to cry, but inside he's going, it's not okay to cry. I can feel that energy. Yeah. And my son can feel it, because he'll say, Dad says it's okay to cry, but then he doesn't like when I cry, but he cries whenever I talk about Pita. Like, whenever I say Pita's name, Dad cries. And so my son's having a really hard time understanding that. And so I have to talk to him about, Dad grew up in a different time, and he wasn't allowed to cry. And so he's having a hard time. And let's send him well wishes and hope that one day he feels safe enough to cry with us, because we will love him no matter what. And, we're trying to talk about it. And I don't want to, again, talk bad about my husband, because he's doing it the way that he can and the way that he was raised. But it's so tricky,
It really is. That's really interesting. I hadn't even really thought about that. I don't think I've even ever seen my husband cry, unless he like tears up at like the end of a sporting movie, and it's like, Oh my gosh, that was so
Yeah.
powerful, but he doesn't much of a crier. And so,
Right.
yeah, that's interesting. But I actually was watching, I had the Barbie movie on last week, and there's a scene where Ryan Gosling is like sobbing uncontrollably under
Mhm.
his bed. And I don't remember, I'm going to get the quote wrong, but he basically was, she was like, it's okay to cry, Ken. And he was like, I'm an evolved man. I know it's okay to cry. And I was like, God bless that line. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked the acknowledgement there, but you're right. And again, I can't say it enough. This is the theme of our episode, is like not seeking perfection, but also trying to do it as well as possible so that we don't screw up our children too much.
Right.
And how do we find that balance of me sobbing about my mother passing in January isn't my process, and I'm confusing my son at the same time. And then it's a whole
Yeah. It's
thing.
so tricky. I think we'll get there one day. But my son, I think, is at a point where he's like, but I still think it's okay to cry. Like, I'm still gonna cry when I want to cry. Like, he's not
Yeah.
letting that change how he processes things. He knows, he's like, after I cry, I feel better.
Yeah.
So he gets it.
Do you mind telling everyone how old your son is?
He's 5.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, this 5-year-old knows the issues are in the tissues. Let it
Right.
out.
I love that. I'm gonna tell him that. He'll love that too. He loves a rhyme.
Loves a nice, yes, I was gonna say, like the volcano, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but it's true. There are these somatic workouts and everything that apparently, like when you start moving your body in a certain way, it just kind of releases things. I was talking to a girlfriend. And I use the airiest of air quotes here, training for a half marathon with some friends in April
Mhm.
in St. Louis. And I'm just
Ooh.
basically like, they're training. I'm just going and I'm going to run, walk, and enjoy being outside. And I was talking about that with another friend, and she was like, I love going on a run. I don't go very far. And I start out kind of walking, and then I jog, and then I usually end up sobbing. And then people are staring at me, but apparently I
Oh,
needed to get something out. And I was like, Jessica, that's
wow.
beautiful.
Yeah. Wow, that could be a new form of therapy, marathon therapy.
I I was like, that's really interesting. I could probably use a good cry. And it is interesting once I finally get set. It's usually something, this is not my therapy session. I'm not much of
Mhm.
a crier. And
Mhm.
so if something really, really insanely upsetting happens, but then I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm crying. This is great. I just like
Mhm.
let it keep going. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I did it. I'm crying.
I did it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of a word that we could call it, and it would be the Therathon. Sorry, I have to do it.
I love that so much. I'm gonna write that down. The
Okay.
Therathon. We're gonna do some more Googling. We're gonna figure this out. I like it.
Okay.
Stay
Okay.
tuned for the Therathon.
We'll have shirts.
We're gonna make shirts, yes. So I was curious though, because you had talked earlier about the calm down piece, and I know that you have, which the link will be in my show notes.
Okay.
You have your Etsy shop, all these like calm down corner activities, and I was just curious about like, for if anybody who's kind of not familiar with the space, if you could tell us more about the calm down corner and how you got into it and how they help and all of that.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I was a horrible teacher. I was a screamer, and I got better by going to a lot of trainings. And something that I learned in several of the different places was it's great for your students to have a place in the classroom they can go
Mhm.
when they are feeling upset. And I'm sorry if it's noisy here. I think someone's blowing leaves outside. Um, but I so once I had that in my classroom, it really changed a lot of the dynamics. And if you think about it, grown-ups have calm down corners. I cry in my bathroom, I meditate in the shower. My husband goes to the closet when he needs a break. He'll go in there and shut the door. I know what's happening. He needs some time to think.
Yes.
Do you have a
Yes.
do you have a space you go where it's like your calm down area? Or maybe the car. Some people like to just kind of
Yes. So that for me, I sit in this office all
Mhm.
day long. I try to get up between clients and get up and move and have a snack and refill my water and hydrate and all of that stuff. And then for me, it's like the 7 minutes that it takes me to get to school to pick
Mhm.
up my kids in my car. I've either got a podcast on, or I'm like Marco Poloing with my girlfriend, the one up from Salt
Right.
Lake, or like that to me is kind of like the detox of my day. So that's not like
Mm.
an in the moment, I need a moment space, but it really has become like my ritual of like, I need to be doing something that's very specific to how I'm feeling right now. And I
Mhm.
don't want to participate in anything else, whether I'm sitting silently or listening to a podcast or whatever it is. I'm trying to think now. I'm like, do I have a calm down corner? We have a calm down corner for the children that
Yeah.
I quilted them a little blanket that it was like a fleece that had like calm down sayings, like mindful sayings.
You
And
quilted it yourself?
I took 2 pieces of fabric and sewed them together and
Hey,
quilted.
that counts. Count
Yeah. Then like, let's just, it's not even stuffed, but because I was like, it's just literally like something for them to hold and like a representative of like a snuggle, and got the little
Yeah.
rainbow calm down corner sign from Target, and
Love it.
the monkey calms down book. And I
Yeah.
hate calm down because I don't want people to tell people to calm down. I do like that my kids teachers teach them like calm your body.
Mm.
Because I think that's something that's really like not tangible, but it's meaningful to them. But I also never want them to feel like, so anytime they're upset, I'll be like, keep crying out,
Yeah.
go ahead, let it go. Like,
You're right. I don't love the name Calm Down Corner. I really do. I need to think of something better than that. But
when we're working on Therathon, we will work on this new thing.
There you go. That'll be part of the meeting.
Yes. Yes.
But okay. So if you don't have an actual Calm Down Corner, that's okay, because what I think is, after you use the Calm Down Corner with your kids, they can take those strategies and use them out in the world. It's not something that they have to use in that corner. And a lot of people will tell me, I don't have enough space in my house for a Calm Down Corner. So the one that I have in my little guide is like a tri-panel poster board that you can fold, shove it under a bed, pull it out, and they can hide behind it when they need space.
Yeah.
And it's got on the board, it has like, these are some of the feelings that I enjoy feeling, or these are the feelings that I'm feeling right now that I'm not enjoying so much. These are some of my strategies. These are some of the feelings I'd like to get to eventually by using some of these strategies. And again, all feelings are okay. It's okay to be frustrated, mad, upset, whatever, but your body cannot stay in fear forever, or you will have all these chemicals wreaking havoc on your joints and your tummy and everything, it's
factual.
Factual. Exactly. So you have to eventually be able to regulate.
Yes.
So basically I spend time explicitly teaching, practicing, showing my son how to recognize, and my students too, not just my son, my students before, here are the things that are happening in your body that are a clue to let you know, hey, I'm feeling this. Here are some things you can do to address those things that might help you to just chill a little bit. And then whenever you're ready to leave, you can leave. And it's not a timeout. You don't send a kid there. It's hey, this place is available to you whenever you'd like it. Even if you just want to go in there and journal for a little bit. If you're not feeling elevated in any way, if you just want to go chill in there, it's your space. And so it's got, things like calm down cream, where you teach them how to actually rub it on their hands and smell it, because smelling it forces them to take breaths. And then you teach them, unless you have a child who might be sensory seeking and might pull too hard, which can be bad for their fingers, you teach them how to like pull the anger and throw it out, like showing them how to do it, and then letting them practice it with you, and then kind of slowly releasing them. The first few times they use it, you might have to go in with them, but there's all kinds of things you can add in there. I have in my book, I've got 6 pages, a chart with 6 pages of ideas.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like I said, I'll put that link to your shop in the show notes, but it really is helpful to have something that's kind of tangible and meaningful. I love the idea of too, like an old school site. Well, I'm sure they still use it, but like science fair poster board, where whether or not you have your own space, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is put up it's like your screen that just surrounds the space and has the beautiful, meaningful things that they're familiar with, that they learned about when they were in a calmer space, and that bring them back down into that. I really, I think that's so meaningful.
You could even give them like a backpack to put all the supplies in, and that could be like their parachute pack. You could use the whole plane analogy. I have a children's book that I'm working on that's a brain plane thing. So maybe it all ties together.
Yes.
And and then the other good thing is a tri-panel. You can get at Dollar Tree for $1.25. You can fold it, stick it in your car if you're going on a road trip and you're going to family's house over the holidays, and your kid's going to need their own space because they're staying at your cousin's house and there's nowhere to go, and your cousin doesn't share their toys, and it's portable.
That's also very true. I was wondering this is a tangent, but I was wondering what you're thinking about, kind of like, again, articulating thoughts and feelings. and I think people go back and forth, and I don't really know where I land on it, but how do you feel about expressing like when you're frustrated to your child? Like, your behaviors are making me feel frustrated, or I'm feeling frustrated as a result of that. Like, how do you kind of make your peace with that in conversations of being authentic, right? So we're not like showing the child like, look, mommy's, I'm taking breaths because that's what,
Yeah.
but what does that look like for you?
I do share with my son when I'm frustrated with him, and he'll say, "Are you mad at me?" And
Yes.
I'm very rarely mad at him.
Uh-huh.
I'm more than often frustrated with what's going on. So if we're like in a
Yes.
rush in the morning, which is what normally happens, we're trying to get
Usually,
out the
yes.
door, and he can tell that I'm getting like a little bit flustered. And he'll say, "Are you mad?" And I say, "No, I'm frustrated because we have to get to school on time.
Mhm.
I feel embarrassed when we're late. And you like to be the first person in the classroom. And then you are frustrated when we are not the first person in the classroom. So now I'm panicked that we're not going to be the first people in the classroom." So
Yeah.
all of these emotions are happening for me. So um, I try to then remember that I need to model taking deep breaths and stuff. But sometimes he's like, "Okay, yeah," and then we just have this crazy dash to the car. It's not always
Yes. Yeah.
perfect. But
I was just curious because
yeah.
I respect your views on a lot of everything that you're describing, and I've seen people, and perhaps they have fancier letters and more longitudinal
Mm.
studies behind their names than I do, but I just find it meaningful for me when I'm in those
Mhm.
situations to be able to say, like, not to say you're making me frustrated because you
Right.
can't force me to feel any sort of way, but your lollygagging is making me feel frustrated because you like to be first in the class and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I know some people are like, well, don't put your emotions on your children. I'm like, but I think it helps them to understand that their actions do impact other people around them. Like, you aren't in control of me and you can't make me feel a certain way. And also, you doing certain things can impact my day.
Right. And I just made a TikTok about this yesterday. Actually, I was listening to another podcast, Nobody's Listening, right? And they were kind of talking about this too. But it's okay if his actions are making me feel frustrated. Again, I'm not saying you are making me frustrated. This situation is making me frustrated, but
Yes.
also I'm the adult. The way I respond to that is what's important.
Mm-hmm.
If I should not be then screaming and throwing a fit about it, I should
Yes.
be able to then calm down.
Yes.
If he's screaming and throwing a fit, then I can help him through that, and it's more understandable. But as an adult, we should have more emotional regulation strategies, and if we don't, we should find a therapist or somebody that can help us
Hey, who's that?
with it.
Yeah, that's exactly. And again, it's both of those things are so true. So you're allowing them to understand that their actions do have absolute, like, that impacts other people. And also, here's what can be done in a responsive way versus a reactive way. I'm an adult. I'm going to stay as regulated as possible. And also, I need you to hightail it on out of here. Like, having
Right.
all of those meaningful, discussions. So all of that leading to, you wrote how to possibly actually remember everything next time, which is by far like the most fabulously clever name of a book, How to
Thanks.
Parent, of
Yeah.
all time. And you're writing a children's book, which I'm already very excited about. We'll have you
Oh
right
yeah,
back on the
thank you.
show whenever you're ready to talk about that as well.
Thanks.
How did you come to decide, like, I need to put this all together, I'm going to put it in a book, all of that?
Yeah. Well, I just found that a lot of people were responding well to acronyms that I came up with when I was making videos. The acronyms were sticking. People were like, "Oh, this is helpful because it helps me remember in the moment." It's that thing where, you can only remember when you're calm, you're in the cockpit of your plane. And so I was like, okay, here are some things that people can learn and remember these steps. Um, and it's, a big chunk of the book is just acronyms. And you don't need to read the whole book at once. You can say, hey, right now I'm having a hard time with my kid not knowing how to apologize. There's a chapter on apologizing. I'm going to memorize the steps. Then I'm going to be able to use those with my kid. Okay, so now 3 months later, I'm having a hard time with my child cleaning their room. There's a chapter about that. These are the steps for that. I'm going to memorize that and then work with my kid on that. And so, yeah, I just thought it would be good to have it all together in one concise volume. Although
Yes.
reading it aloud has taken, I've been trying to record this audiobook for months. I don't know why it's taken me so long, other than my ADHD.
Well, I was gonna say for many reasons, right? But also
Yeah.
too, I mean, it really is, it's an undertaking. I'm always super impressed by people. And some people, that's their job is voice actor and or something similar and they breeze through it in 2 days. But I've always been fascinated by that because I do love an audiobook sometimes and it seems like a lot of work.
Well, I really only consume audiobooks these days. If for this book, I really do recommend having a paper copy because
Yes.
it is acronyms. And I think that just reading it is helpful. And then like being able to like put a bookmark on that page and flip to it is
Yes.
helpful. It'd be harder to consume an audio version, but I do understand my neurodivergent friends like me, we like an audiobook. So I'm doing it for the people.
Yes, and they all appreciate that for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And see, I really like to circle and highlight, and even if I never go back in and look at it again, which a lot of times I actually do, but there's
Hmm.
something for me that's very meaningful about like writing that down. And that's what I've been in your book, like, writing or notes or whatever. So it just depends. Like I remember I was listening to, it's sitting over here, Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was so excited to listen to it, and I had a little bit of a drive when I lived in Houston, and I kept being like, oh, I need to write that down. Oh, I need to write that down. Oh, I need to write that down. So,
Right.
all right, I got to stop this. And I went and bought the book.
I no, that would totally, and I think that that might happen to you if you do the audiobook of this. But I still recommend you do it if that's the only way you can consume it, fine. But
Absolutely.
I personally, if I were going to read this book, would want to read it on paper so that I could make notes and just if I forgot one part of it, I wouldn't have to find like, okay, gosh, chapter 7, fast forward to 30 minutes and 27 seconds, just feels like it would be challenging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited too, because like I said, I read the book and it's also really a consumable book too. Like that's a little bit higher, larger print, and it just,
Hmm.
yeah, it's really been
I
very helpful for me to go
tried to
through.
make it easy peasy.
Yeah. What are some of a couple of the highlights that might be helpful for people to listen to?
Um, I think the most helpful thing, I mean, there's all the acronyms. There's BRAT, the BRAT method, which I wish I wouldn't have called it that because people are like, why are you calling kids brats? And
I
also, what about the brat diet? And I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, fine. Valid points. Had I known that it was going to become popular, I would have called it something else. But
Yes.
it does help you because sometimes you're like, why is my kid being a brat? So I try to make my acronyms not only acronyms, but also like applicable to the situation that you use them for. So when
Right.
your child's in a tantrum, you use the BRAT method. When they're in a meltdown and they actually need space, because if you try to make eye contact with them, they're going to flip out even further. SPACE is the acronym. Um, and then there's a whole chapter with emotional regulation strategies, which I think is going to be really helpful because that's what people are always asking me for. And it's just a chart basically. It's like, here's the strategy, here's how you do it. And it's things that you could use in a calm down corner, but also that you could use as an adult to
Yeah.
chill. Yeah.
Yes. And one of my favorite things to say is, the not the best, one of the best ways to help a child with anxiety is to have their parent with anxiety get their own help.
Yes.
And so it's one of those things where the information you're sharing is not necessarily, I mean, does common sense really exist anyway? But it's not common
Yeah.
sense. Like it seems so simple when you're reading it, like, oh, duh, of course
Right.
a dysregulated adult is not going to help a child become regulated. Of course that makes sense, but do we actually sit and think about it? And so in reading this book and it's like, oh, you can help your child by doing these things. It's like, and you could try to use them yourself first.
Yes, exactly.
Have you thought about reading?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I hope that that's the takeaway, and I hope that it helps parents. And um, yeah, I hope it's helpful. I am reading through it. I did self-publish, so I self-edited, and I'm not the best editor. I'm okay. I edit other people's papers, and I'm a lot better at editing other people's than
Oh,
my
well, I
own.
think so. I think we're always better at, I shouldn't say always, very rarely is anything one thing, but I think oftentimes I'm like, yes, it makes more sense for me to look at somebody else. It's nice to be the extra set of eyes versus those are
The
my eyes
only,
looking at
yeah.
my eyes.
Yeah. So I'm reading it now. I'm reading it out loud now to my computer, and I'm going, Jackie, that wasn't right. You should have said that better. But it's okay. It's my first book. I've got more in me, so
I
it'll,
was going to say, absolutely. We have to start somewhere.
yeah.
I've been very lucky to have a number of great authors on, and a lot of people are saying similar things too. Like, one of them was saying about, Jessica Leahy was talking about, I'm glad that first book that I wrote didn't get published because, oh my God.
But that is not to say that I'm very glad that this is out there. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my
These
gosh,
are
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And
I
I was
feel
curious.
strongly. Yeah.
Would you ever, have you thought about, this is literally, I might even cut this out of the podcast, but I'm actually just curious because I've been writing my own book as well. When you're going through and reading that, are you taking notes and maybe like, oh, I could update that for a second edition? Or are you like, nope, this is what I've got and I'm leaving it? What do you think?
That's a great point. I could do a second edition of it. I mean, I could add more to it because I've already got more acronyms that are coming out of me. So for sure, there's a possibility. Anything's possible.
Yeah. I don't, like I said, we can put that out. I was just, for
Yeah.
myself,
No.
I was curious.
Yeah.
Well, great. And so now we have come to, I am so excited. Tell me about hiding in cars.
Okay. It's so silly. It's a podcast I started with my friend Evelyn Marley, who she and I started some podcasts together during the pandemic about
Yeah.
Bravo. Actually, we did one about Bravo and one about neighborhood gossip. And we bounce off each other really well and we get along so well. And we like lost touch a little bit and we decided we wanted to start another podcast. We were like, well, why don't we just do a podcast where we catch up and hopefully it's helpful for people. And the whole idea is like, it's for moms who are spending that last 10 to 15 minutes in their car before they go in the house.
I said it earlier. That's my home corner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's a good transition. You know, once you've done one activity, I need a little transition time into the next activity. And so it's just, you don't have to listen. Nothing is going to, if you miss a minute, nothing is going to change your world, but we try to just be funny and silly in the main episodes. And then we have listener submitted or Jackie submitted questions. And we answer those on a bonus episode. So we record every other week and we try to do like something with parenting or boundaries because Evelyn is, she's an executive coach is her title, I guess, but she does like boundary awareness and how to help people set boundaries and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. We love it. It's so fun. And even if nobody was listening, we'd keep doing it, but we hope you come listen. It's called Hiding in Cars. Yeah.
That will also obviously be in the show notes as well. Is that on what, Apple and
it's everywhere,
Spotify
I think. As far as I know, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, so you mentioned your mom earlier, and I wanted to come back to, gosh, it was almost a month ago now, but you had posted that your mom used to say, when you don't know what to do, don't do anything, pause. And I just thought, I don't even really necessarily have a question on that. I just wanted to say it out loud and put it into the universe for people.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Barbara she was a funny lady with lots of funny things that she said. And she also did a lot of not great things, but
we're not looking for perfection.
Right. Exactly. That's true. But that thing has helped me a lot because although I do struggle with decisiveness and sometimes it's helpful for me to just make a choice because really either choice in the end is not going to make a difference.
Yes. You're talking about my 4-year-old right now. It's like, just pick a pair of socks.
Anything. They're the same. They're the same. Yeah. Same outcome.
Yes.
But when it's a bigger thing that might have a more profound effect on your life, you don't have to choose right away unless you have to choose right away. So if you need to take some time to think about it, take some time to think about it. And so I just love it.
I love it. I'm just going to say it one more time for everybody. So when you don't know what to do, don't do anything, pause. And again, these are not life and death situations. These are, and I think too, it goes back to responsive versus reactive. Like if your children are throwing stuff at each other or being rude, again, don't let them hurt each other, but like if no one is going to be injured, maybe take a lap around the dining room before you go in and intervene. Maybe do a breathing. I'm always a fan of oxygenating your muscles.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the chapters in my book, because people always tell me, well, you don't know what to do with 2 kids. You only have 1 kid. And I'm like, well, I was a teacher for 11 years. So cut me some slack, first of all, but I have a strategy that's called the nurse and the narrator. And so first you are the nurse, you triage, you see, is anybody going to get hurt? Just like you said, is anybody significantly more upset than anybody else? And if you need to address that, then do it. But if you don't know what to do, just start narrating what's happening. Brother threw a sock at sister's head and sister's upset because it stinks and also germs in her eye. And it buys you time. It helps you understand the situation better. It helps you pause. They will say, that's not why I'm mad. I'm mad because she ate my Cheerio. It helps clarify everything and just gives you time. I don't know.
I love that. That's actually a solution-focused brief therapy tool where you repeat something back to somebody, or you kind of make I don't want to use the word assumption, that's too aggressive, but like you're upset because you're afraid of germs going in your eyeball. And they can either agree with you and go on and say yes, and here's because this thing that's going on, or they can be like, no, he ate my Cheerios, and then it's like, oh well, now I understand why you're really upset, so I can be more helpful and impactful in this situation, because I inferred one thing from having viewed it this way, and yet this happened while I was in the other room, etc. So I love that too, right? Just when narrate. I like that. We've got the taglines, we've got the Therathon. We are making it. Love it. You have one of the most fabulously creative minds, and you work it. That's really wonderful. I love that.
Thank you. I feel very, very, very lucky to be able to do that. I'm very glad that my husband has been so supportive of me pursuing all of these things that I love to do, because, I obviously we agreed that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom for a few years, but then since Kind Minds Smart Hearts has been successful-ish, he's like, this is your time that you'll get to pursue something like this. If you want to keep going with it, now's the time, let's do it. And it has made him have to work harder at his job. So I do appreciate that. And I don't know if he's going to listen, but if he does, thank you very much, Luciano. That's very nice of you.
Luciano. That's so sweet. I love that. Yes. I mean, honestly, that's the same. Austin does listen to this, and bless his little heart, because sometimes it's like, I don't want to say I've never had an episode where somebody can't get anything out of it, but some of them are very specific. Like I did one on umbilical hernias. Right. Yeah. And bless him, he's heard every single minute of it. But that's the same thing for me. To be able to do private practice is something that I had always wanted to do when I started social work school. And some of that meant that he was lifting the load financially for a little while there. So we just always like to appreciate and send shout outs to the people around us.
Right. Definitely.
Yes.
Not to say that we don't lift our own loads, because we definitely do.
We sure. Well, I think if anybody is listening to this podcast and was curious as to whether either one of they probably wouldn't be right. I don't think people who would be. True. So I don't know. Maybe not. If not, please feel free to DM me. I'd be happy to have that conversation. In a solution-focused way. Right. Great. So obviously this will all be in the show notes, but I'd love to just have everyone as well, because I find that a lot of times people find people through my podcast, which is great. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at kindminds_smart hearts, pretty much everywhere. Except X, which is just at kindminds_, but I don't really do anything over there anymore. I haven't tweeted. It's not a thing. So that's kind of just sitting there, being probably a source where I'll get in trouble later on in life. And then, no.
Hello, Travis Kelce. Yes.
Yeah. No, Travis Kelce. He was innocent and sweet. That's good. Right? Or did I miss something?
I think he called the Clippers dancers fat or something, but otherwise, yes, he was being otherwise. But you know what? Sorry, this is a tangent quickly. Yeah. Honestly, in that situation, I think he should go and do a dance with the Clippers team. I don't know what they're called, the dance team, and make amends. I love that. Like, just go, look, we all make stupid choices and have opinions on people's bodies, and we now are aware that we're not entitled to comment on people's bodies anymore a decade on after he said that. So
right.
Yes, and everything else was like, I'm eating a ham sandwich for lunch.
Which is a great choice. Love a ham sandwich.
Yes. Little Swiss cheese.
Yes. And then also at Hiding in Cars, like I said before, but
yes,
that's where you can find me. And then I have an Etsy shop, like you said. It's Velvet Hammer Designs. I had that before I started any of this other stuff, and I was selling Bravo merch. Yes. So if you like Bravo, if you're a Real Housewives person, there's some shirts there. Actually, the shirt that Tom Sandoval was wearing on TV on the trip that they went to with Raquel, it says Yellow Robe Smith, is from my shop. So I'm part of Scandival.
Congratulations. What a moment.
Thanks. Yeah. And Ariana bought it for him from my shop. So it is her quote that he was wearing and basically rubbing in her face. So if you buy it, I also donate a portion of that to Skin Cancer research
Yes.
because Ariana and I both had melanoma. So
Yes.
that is something.
Spreading the word.
Yeah.
Spreading the word. Sunscreen team. Sunscreen and water.
Yes,
Sunscreen and
all
water.
day. Yeah.
All
Agreed.
day. Jackie, thank you so much for taking the time. I have been looking forward to this basically since
Me
we started
too.
chatting with each other, and it's been such a pleasure, and I'm so excited to get to share all this information with the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry it took me so long to buckle down a date. I just,
Nope.
Where's the time?
We were meant to be, what is today? Well, it's not going to drop today anyway, but we were meant to be here in this moment right now. And I always try to have that view of like, what wasn't meant for me doesn't come to me, or whatever the expression is. And like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now if I had made other choices. And that's really got to be my mantra these days. A very long mantra, but that's the energy. That's
gotta
the
write
energy.
it down if you're going to repeat that one.
I said, so what I had said was,
Love it.
all right. Well, thank you so much. And listeners, remember, be curious, not judgmental. Goodbye.